Hi, welcome to Free Spirit and welcome to a special close-up review. And I say it's special because it's one of my decks that I created. This is my latest one. It's now my 8th deck. I had no plans to create any of these decks, but then I was inspired to do them and I did them for myself. And then I started sharing them on my Etsy store, and I only do, small runs at a time because that's all I can afford to do. But this is my 8th deck. It's Divine Power. A Divine Power Oracle deck. So it will be available, I guess, in about 2 weeks on my store, but I wanted to give you a sneak peek and show you. I just got the cards today and I'm very, very excited because this Divine Power deck, this has been gnawing at me on the side, like while I was doing my actual work, my job, and I didn't really have time to do it or finish it, but everything was coming through about divine power, our divine power. And I'll say, even if you have no interest in this deck, to take this message with you, that we are part of this co-creation right now during this transformational time. And it is all about our divine power, to step into more divine power, to pour our hearts into things, come fully with all you are, and we are the difference. A lot of times we sit back and we're waiting for someone else to put on a cape and fly in and make things better, but it's for us to make things better. And they were saying, follow your inspirations, follow your divine ideas, your kernels of ideas and ways to go if you're inspired. So definitely follow that, because we're part of the co-creation, and a lot of that you'll realize in your own personal life. It's been like pushing us like a wave. They kept on saying it's like a divine power wave, and each one of us are like droplets of this divine power wave, meaning we are to step fully into this divine power. And we are part of the change. We're part of the new creations. So we need to rise up fully into this divine power, tap into a power that we didn't even realize we have. The circumstances made us all stronger. We powered through. Now we're part of recreation, co-creation, recreation. And we're coming with divine ingredients. They kept on saying, like pouring in divine ingredients. But so this deck was really inspired. Why I'm rambling is because it's all about this divine power. And I have to tell you, this was such an emotional deck for me to personally do, because it really, the whole motive of this deck is to show up in your more power, divine power, not ego power, but divine power. Pour yourself fully and turn it up. Turn it up, like turn up your divine power in your life, turn up with divine power in your life, and that is making the changes. Like that is it, that's the kernel. So this deck is a big whopping deck. Another thing I wanted to say, a lot of my decks, I have large decks and small decks, and some people were saying, some of the decks, they're smaller size, and I'll tell you why, because it's costly. And but this deck definitely wanted to be a large deck, so it is a regular tarot size deck. And it has 90 cards in it. 88 cards have actual messages that from spirit that I just like dictated. I do auto writing. I've done auto writing my entire life. I used to put them on magnets and books and do all that stuff. It's only in the past 2 years or so I started pouring it into oracle decks, and that's why once I found that channel of expression, I now have 8 decks. So sharing that with you because you might find that too in these times of change, that new channels are opening up for you to pour divine parts of you that maybe you didn't have an outlet for before. All of a sudden it's created, or you're creating it. I do have to say that. Okay, so now going back to this deck. I'm rambling because I'm so excited because this is a divine power deck. I love how the wings go here, and it's a big whopping deck, not gilded, but in the inside, and it will say Divine Power Oracle cards by Free Spirit. I always give Spirit the credit, and it says stay connected to your divine power. Know you always have divine power to go on and to turn up, and that is the key thing, to tap into your own divine power. And these are here to connect with, to receive divine power messages whenever you need. This Oracle deck has 88 divine power cards plus 2 intro cards. And these are divine power messages to connect with and to turn up with divine power, your divine power. And that's what the whole moral of this whole deck is, to turn up your own divine power and use it. So how to use the Divine Power Oracle cards: you shuffle the cards to connect with your energy. You center yourself and ask as you shuffle, what are divine power messages for right now that can help me tap into and use more divine power. At the end of showing you the cards, I'll do a bonus reading at the end for us, but I shuffle the cards and I wait for jumpers. You can do it however you want, but that's what I usually do, is I shuffle the cards and wait for jumpers that fall out of the deck, and you keep receiving messages until you literally feel you are turned up with more divine power, and know you'll always have divine power to go on and to turn up. And that is the whole sentiment of this deck, is to tune into it, shuffle the cards, get messages that literally refocus you back on your own divine power and to turn it up in your life, in the circumstances, in what you're doing, what you're going for, what you're trying to create, recreate, whatever. But that's what the times call for. So this is like divine timing. You know, I have the divine timing deck. This is like divine timing, that the divine power deck is actually completed now, because this has been like recurring messages for right now. How pivotal. I mean, it's always important to know your divine power and turn up with that, turn it up, and feel powerful in your life, but no more importantly than right now. Okay, so let's go. So 88 cards with plus these 2 intro cards. So it says you have divine power to change your mind. You have divine power to see farther than that. You have divine power to tap into for clarity. And by the way, they instructed me literally to put "you have divine power" on each card, because I think it's also affirming that you have divine power. That's why those words are repeated on every card. That was intentional. It's not redundant. It's almost like meditating to you, back to you, saying out in your mind, you have divine power. And then what the message is: you have divine power to tap into for clarity. You have divine power to move ahead. You have divine power to go back and redo. You have divine power to listen for inner guidance. You have divine power to tune in more. You have divine power to feel what is right. You have divine power to speak up now. You have divine power to create it. You have divine power to relax and de-stress. You have divine power to dream more. You have divine power to act on it. You have divine power to set it free. You have divine power to let go. You have divine power to follow through. You have divine power to listen to your heart. You have divine power to figure it out. You have divine power to power up now. You have divine power to make it happen. You have divine power to succeed now. You have divine power to make the difference. You have divine power to bring more love in here. You have divine power to bring more wisdom in here. So these I almost call like power cards when they're talking, going into here, because they're saying you literally have the divine power to bring in more love in here, meaning in the situation in your life. That's what you're being called on to do. You have divine power to bring more wisdom in here. You have divine power to bring more peace in here. You have divine power to bring more awareness in here. You have divine power to bring in more faith and trust in here. You have divine power to see the way forward now. You have divine power to rise up for this now. You have divine power to remain connected to always. You have divine power to connect with for more strength. You have divine power to connect with for more power. You have divine power to connect with for more insight. You have divine power to connect with for more love. You have divine power to connect with for more wisdom. You have divine power to connect with for more support. You have divine power to connect with for more answers. These cards are more like what's backing you when you connect to divine power. The divine, you get more answers, you get more wisdom, you get more support. So those are when they're asking you to tune in to them. You have divine power to connect with for more peace. You have divine power to finish. You have divine power to start. You have divine power to be in sync with divine timing. You have divine power to notice and follow the signs. You have divine power to know what you really need. You have divine power to know what you really feel. You have divine power to make it through anything. You have divine power to make it happen. You have divine power to shine light on situations. You have divine power to make it better for you and others. You have divine power to make it brighter for you and others. You have divine power to make it beautiful for you and others. You have divine power to make it lighter for you and others. You have divine power to power on with now. You have divine power to turn off now. You have divine power to turn up now. You have divine power to simplify now. You have divine power to get it done. You have divine power to leave it now. You have divine power to work on it now. You have divine power to make it now. You have divine power to see it through. You have divine power to listen to. You have divine power to take care of you. I like that, take care of yourself. You have divine power to use now for this. You have divine power to power on with. You have divine power to find a way. You have divine power to tap into now. You have divine power to do more now. You have divine power to rise above it. You have divine power to help feel more safe. You have divine power to help feel more protected. You have divine power to help feel more love. You have divine power to help get more guidance. You have divine power to be more connected to now. You have divine power backing you up. You have divine power to reboot and recharge. You have divine power to restart. You have divine power to upgrade with now. You have divine power to work with for this. You have divine power running through you now. You have divine power so to share it now. You have divine power so to use it now. You have divine power so remember to activate it. You have divine power to be positively charged. You have divine power to plug into more things. You have divine power, so shine that out now. You have divine power that is unlimited as you are. And you have divine power to open up and share more. And you have divine power to always go on with. Those are the cards. There are 88 messages here for divine power. And this was the Divine Power Oracle deck. So I just got this printed today. I just received it. I was so excited. I want to show you. So let's do an actual bonus reading. And this is all about divine power. So whether you like this deck, not like this deck, it's all about your own divine power, to tap into your own divine power, show up to situations and deal with things more powerfully in your life, because you're part of creation, co-creation, creation, recreation right now. Especially now, it's no time to be timid, and we all need to tap in to our own divine guidance and be a leader, not a follower, meaning like follow where you're guided to go, what you're guided to do, not pay so much attention to what everybody else is doing, like follow your own guidance. And you're so powerful, and you're so, I mean, that's what's been coming through over and over again. So these are cards to just really empower you on where you are, what you're doing. And so let's see, Divine Power Oracle. The Divine Power Oracle. So what are the Divine Power messages for right now? And again, this deck is the large deck with 88 cards plus 2 instruction cards. And it'll come again in that just a white clear box. It will come, if you do order it, all my decks come like this in a clear white shiny box, because I like to keep the costs down to make all my decks available, and that's it. So it's like everything is natural. All my decks are natural pictures I've taken, and with the spirit messages on the decks. That's all what the ingredients are of my decks, because I'm not an artist, so I do say that for all my decks. They're all natural pictures with the spirit messages, because for me, it's all about spirit messages, and that's what my decks are all about. So just being natural and spirit messages. So Divine Power, what are the Divine Power messages for right now? I'm so excited this deck is complete. I can't even believe it, because it's been on the back burner for a long time to do this. I was busy with work, and it's just funny how, you know, if it's meant to be, it will come together. Okay, so Divine Power, here we go. Divine Power for right now. What are the messages for Divine Power? Divine Power messages. What are the Divine Power messages for myself and anyone who finds this video? That came right out. See, when you shuffle, I just shuffle like this, if you can see, and they fly out themselves. I just wanted to show you how I shuffle. So then I just wait for the cards to come out, and you keep choosing cards until you feel like you have a whole message for you. So this is the first one, second one, and the third one. And I'll keep going. You have divine power to get it done. Just when I was saying, I can't believe this is done. If there are things and projects and things that you're working on right now, and you're just like, I can't imagine completing this or getting this done, or I have so much to do, you have divine power to get it done. So they are backing you to get it done. So whatever projects you have in your mind or work that you're doing, you have divine power to get it done. You have divine power to take care of you. So you step in and take real divine care of yourself at this time. We're all doing that individually and collectively, taking really good care of ourselves. And you have divine power to finish. Yes. So again, you have divine power to get it done, and you have divine power to finish. So if there are things that you're working on and everything else, they're empowering you to get it done, to get it finished, to go for it. And during the time that you're doing that, make sure to take really good divine care of yourself. Rest, rejuve, save your energy has been coming through a lot too. Is take care of your energy level so that you can finish and you can get it done. Like focus, rein back your energy. That's been coming up a lot because we're so distracted. There's so much going on that we're pulled in a million directions, and you may want to pull back your energy. So taking great care of you and your energy so you can finish and get it done. Oops. Let's see what other messages for divine power. But that's a clear message. And that's also going back to why this deck was even created, because you're needed to do things and finish things and conquer things and accomplish things. And they want you to take care of yourself, and you have the power to get it done and to finish. And then we have, you have divine power to make it brighter for you and others. So whatever you're doing is shining a light, it's making it better and brighter for yourself, for others. There are going to be payoffs, or it's like very positive for you and others, whatever you're working on, and you have divine power to work with for this. So that is saying like you yourself have divine power, and you have like divine backing to help empower you to work on it, to finish it. They're almost saying like what you're working on, it's bright. It's going to make it brighter, payoffs for you and others, and you have divine power to reboot and recharge. So it's going back to here, you have divine power to take care of yourself. There will be moments when you need to reboot or recharge so you can finish, keep working on getting those good results for yourself. So really take good care of yourself and reboot and recharge when you need it, because you need it for your projects that you're working on. And they want to remind you, you have divine power to always go on with. Yes. So if you need to recharge, reboot, and everything, get refired up, tap into more divine power to feel that you have the energy to complete and work on the things that you need, because it's going to make it brighter for yourself and others. They're saying you always have divine power to always go on with. So they're really trying to empower you. And if you need time, they're underscoring to reboot and recharge, because you need to take really good care of yourself. There are definitely things to save your energy for, to get it done, to finish, because it's positive outcomes. It's going to have positive results for yourself and others. So what you're working on, your projects or something, it's going to be like a bright payoff, positive. So you got to save your energy for that, and take care of your energy has been coming through, because I love when they say you have divine power to take care of you and to reboot and recharge, and you always have divine power to always go on with. Reminding you that when you can always tap in to get rebooted, recharged with this divine power to finish, to work on what you need to. I love these messages. I am so happy to see this physically done and in my life, because this was like, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. This is the back of the cards. It's 80. They're not gilded or anything. It's 88 cards. And all my decks, they come in, a plain white glossy kind of box to keep the cards safe. This is a regular size tarot deck. I do have a couple of smaller decks also. I know I do, because they were easier to get done that way. And to make 8 decks available, it started, it's very costly getting the printing done and things, but all these decks, so I started doing these for myself, and then I'm sharing them on the Etsy store. But this was my divine power deck, and I love how you can see the wings like going from each card. And this is literally to have you turn up with more divine power, feel that you're backed with divine power, and how to always remain tapped in, or when you need to turn up the divine power. And because we're needed, like all of this was talking about work and projects and things that you're working on and doing, they want you to feel empowered to do that. So this is literally the Divine Power Oracle cards that I just received the printing here. So I will order, a couple of decks to throw on my Etsy store. It should be up in like 2 weeks, and I do small runs at a time. But know that when any of my decks run out, I do order another small run of them. So if you miss, them, if you miss this deck up there, believe me, there'll be more. I can only do small runs at a time. And thank you so much, because I started sharing these decks, and I love that people are appreciating the energy as I do. I appreciate it. That's why I started sharing them, and they just bathe me. So I started sharing them. I use these decks. I do share it on my channel, but these decks are like my personal decks too, because they really connect with your energy. And all my decks, I find, I love other decks, and I do close-up reviews of tons of other decks, but these, at first when I started sharing my decks, it felt like I was sharing my diary or something. It just felt so personal. I'm just happy they're being received in the right way, and now I understand why I was nudged to share them. It took a lot to share them. But anyway, but I guess that's all about divine power too, because we have to share, and if it's benefiting you, then you should share it with others and all that. But divine power, and again, this is all about our divine power, and whether or not you're attracted to this deck or not, step into your divine power, because we are part of that co-creation, and they want you to feel empowered. And pouring divine ingredients, like pour yourself fully into things, it's like divine ingredients that's co-creating right now. And so don't hold back is what I want to say. It's like, if I held back, I wouldn't have created this. I just was inspired and I followed it, and that's really been the recurring spirit message, to do that, because the divine ideas, well, whether people consider themselves spiritual or not, if they're getting a divine idea, or a divine idea, they're following through, and that's what's leading to their new creations and recreations, whether they give credit to spirit or not. That's what's kind of happening. So definitely in your own life, tap into more power and use divine ingredients, and just go forward and remain fired up. And if you don't feel fired up, take the action to get fired up, to re-empower yourself. Take it, like underneath there it said, take care of your energy, reboot and recharge. Like, be very aware of your own energy, because again, they were saying there's so much ramped up that pulls at our energy, drainage. They made me post a spirit message about energy leaks. Pay attention to your energy. You want to have divine power. You need to accomplish things. You want to better your own life and those around you. You want to make it brighter for yourself and others. You have to remain empowered, and only you can notice that shift in you and do an action to activate it or bring it back up for yourself. That's really what this deck is also is really about. So like they said, literally, stay connected to your divine power. Know you always have divine power to go on and to turn up. And just what I'm reading here is what they gave me. Know you always have divine power to go on and to turn up. And that these are divine power messages to connect with and to turn up with divine power, your divine power. And that's what the moral of this whole deck is. To show up, turn up with divine power. Know you're always connected to divine power, and use it for good. Okay, so this has been the Divine Power Oracle cards. I'm so excited. Take care. Bye-bye.